My guy, you have got to stop showing up when I want to do my intros, especially because we're indoors. That's just rude. Anyway, welcome back to TEYARA SMP, a TNP Limitless 7 series. And, well, this guy has ruined my intro just a little bit, but we are here inside the Foundry over at the pressing and alchemy side of things, and you can already see that I've been doing some building. Because apparently when I don't want to work on infrastructure and, you know, my anxiety's getting to me, I just stress build. And so that's what's ended up happening. I stress built a lot of stuff. We already had, like, these supports and stuff. But you can see I've gone and labeled all of the tanks from down below. I don't think we had this the last two videos, so I also added some dawnstone blocks just as an accent. We also have lamps down below hanging on chains, and we also have some lamps up above on each of those dawnstone blocks. We'll see those as we go through. I'm also experimenting with wall palettes, so I've just got some caminite here. I think that looks pretty good, debating on whether or not I want to add a little bit more of an accent and get your llamas out of the way, my guy. Anyway, so I'm debating whether I want to add some more outlining here with the netherite, or not netherite, nether bricks or not. Down here, I'm also planning on adding some block. I've experimented with caminite bricks, and it kind of makes the exchange tablet blend in. So I'm almost wondering if I want to do more of a dawnstone thing here. Maybe that'll look better. I'm not sure. Moving along just a little bit, here on the sides, I've added these massive pillars, and this is unfinished, but what I'm planning on doing is we have these 4 open spots like this, and I figured what I'd first do is start with sort of a gradient frame. So we've got the nether bricks into the rhyolite, and then into the packed mud, and then we'll probably have, well, we've got a framed double stair here, so that we can get into half-block pixelation. Really nice feature of framed blocks, in my opinion. Then, we've got sand. Do I have the specific type? No. Anyway, it's smooth sandstone. And we're probably going to use that as the background of our canvas, but what I'm thinking is we're going to do some pixel art up in here, maybe, theoretically, probably. And I'm thinking stuff like, you know, maybe a hammer, maybe an ingot, maybe like a sword, something like that, you know, just stuff you would expect to see in a foundry, possibly like an ember shard on one of the walls, because, I mean, this is the Embers place, so I think that'd be really cool. Then we also have more use of the rhyolite here on the back wall, and some chipped glowstone lanterns. I think that's really everything that I've done in here. I've also noticed that with these fluid transfers that it's really spotty whether or not it'll display the fluid that I've had in the transfers. Like on my laptop when I'm playing, it seems like most of these are actually filled in, so there's probably some weird condition with how you load in the game and all that whatnot that determines whether or not these actually display, but you can see that we definitely have more of the filters filled in than the last time. Now, I've also been doing a whole heck ton of work outside of that part, so we have actually done some new integrations here, and just ignore all of this mystical agriculture stuff that we've got over here. I just really need a better place to put it, and for right now I've just been shuffling it around. So, major changes. You can see that I've got this second thing, the pressure refinery that I keep talking about, and it's not wired up to anything just yet. That might be one of the things we do later in the episode. But for now, we're still using this heat exchanger, and eventually, once I've got everything wired up, I think I'm probably going to switch totally to the pressure refinery, which we will then pipe the output of this into a copper cell, which will still be in the line of all of these relays. So we'll have a bit more of a buffer. We'll also be able to come over here, take a look at the gauge on the side of that cell, and then determine how much power we have in our buffer, and that'll be really nice. We have also added a pump to pump the, the creosote oil out of our coke oven. And we've also done some very interesting things with these barrels from Sophisticated Storage, and I went specifically in search of mangrove because I think that's the best looking barrel, or at least goes with the rest of the color palette that I'm working with here. So we have mangrove gold barrel chests around the outside, and you can see that we've got filter settings. So if I take a look at this, we have coal and block of coal, which are the only two things that I really want going into the coke oven. It also would accept logs, but I really don't want that. So what this means is, because we have that filter, despite the fact that we have, we're using the Embers item extractor to do this, we're only ever getting these two blocks out, which is a problem that I encountered, that if you were to try to do the Embers item transfer as a filter, much like we're doing with the fluid transfers, then it would, how best to describe this? You would have your extractor, and then you would have your item transfer after it, and so items could still get stuck in the extractor area. I don't know if you can do an item transfer directly next to the inventory you're trying to draw from, and then put an extractor on the other side of that, but without testing that experimentally, and I really should test that experimentally at some point in time, this is a really neat solution that relies on multiple mods to get the job done, and that's really cool. Now, I think this fluid transfer is a little bit redundant, right? And we're just pumping the creosote oil out. Really, I should get rid of this and just use a regular old fluid pipe, because I don't think this can ever flow backwards with the current design. Originally, I was thinking maybe we could do it with this fluid extractor here, but for now, this is just off to the side so that we can eventually put in a create spout and have that fill up buckets for us. Now, that's another thing that I think I'm probably going to do in this episode, because that's fairly cheap, and it'd be nice to get that out of the way as well. I'm blatantly ignoring the thing that's next to that, because we still have more to cover up here. Lastly, we also have this improved blast furnace, and so what I'm doing is that we're outputting from the coke oven directly into the blast furnace. And the reason I made this is because I realized that the original blast furnace doesn't have any automation whatsoever, and that surprised me, because I really wanted to be able to do what I'm doing. I wanted to be able to pipe out the coal coke blocks, output them directly into the blast furnace, and then from another place I'd pump in iron so that we could start steel production. Well, continue steel production, because you need steel to be able to make this in the first place. So, if we take a look up here, we have a limited mangrove diamond barrel 3, and that means that we have 3 different types of items that are permitted into this barrel, acting as its own filter. We have a filter permitting the output of coal coke, because I figure I only really want blocks in here as fuel, because they're more efficient, for one thing. But then if I do, for whatever reason, want any coal coke just for other purposes, then I can burn some coal in the coke oven and then just pump it out over here. So this is kind of an intermediary transit point. But anyway, so we have the coke block up at the top and our iron ingot in the lower left. And then we also have a hopper setting. So what that allows us to do, with the advanced hopper setting specifically, we can specify a direction in which to push things out. Well, push or pull things. However, it does it relative to the barrel, which I'm not sure I like. I think I would prefer absolute positioning instead. But the point is, we have the bottom of the barrel, or the back of the barrel, I should say, which is facing down, to push. And we have in our whitelist iron and block of coal coke, which is exactly what we get into here. And so for a while I was trying also to take the outputs and then pump them into the mangrove barrel up here, just because I thought that would be nicer, but that ended up coming with a lot of issues with the item pipes in Embers, and rather than struggling with that, I just decided, okay, I'm going to put a depot here, because you need an inventory to output to from the furnace. Like, the ember pipes do not connect to these outputs. So I thought, yeah, depot there, and we'll just put some chutes, and we'll take it down to storage drawers in the bottom. And I think that's kind of nice because, you know, we're doing the whole molten metal flows down out of the system, as well as the slag. I got to sleep in about 10 seconds, but for now, let's hop on here, and this was very much inspired by Final Fantasy XI, because I wanted some system that would allow me to put in an elevator here, just a constantly moving elevator. And I thought, why not have just 2 elevators that are offset from each other, and just, you get on one at the bottom, you ride it up, the other one descends at the same time, so if there are multiple people, you're never stuck without an elevator. And like I said, this is legitimately just, if you go to Bastock, I think the building that Sid is in has these elevators, and it's just very 11 inspired. I'm gonna go ahead and sleep now because we definitely are still open to the exterior, but... So, the back wall, I haven't entirely decided what I'm going to do with. I'm definitely not just going to leave it, like, half-finished like this, but what I'm envisioning is we're going to have a bit of an assembly line here, and that'll probably be where we do our casings. So you'll probably just input stripped wood. I imagine I'm going to be doing that somewhere else, and we're going to detail those plans in a bit. But you input the stripped wood, and then you can toggle a number of clutches up top to determine which deployers are going to activate. And, we're going to have, let's see, copper, brass, we're going to have andesite casings, and then I'm also planning on potentially doing train casings as well here. And basically what that's going to necessitate is, if you're going to make a train casing, you still put in the stripped log, but then you must enable both the brass and the train casing deployers in order for it to work. But we're nowhere near train casing. I'm just spitballing, and I think we'd probably use like an AND gate because we have that from Tiny Gates mod. Then next to that, I'm also thinking some stuff about maybe ingot hammering, or what were the other things that I was thinking of assembling? Possibly something to automate mystical agriculture just a little bit. Yeah, I'm really not entirely sure what I want to be doing just yet with the rest of the space. We're going to play that by ear. Probably not this episode, but we'll think about it some more. Outside here, I'm planning on putting in a couple of purely aesthetic bellows-looking things, because as I was mentally thinking about how I'm designing this thing with regards to thermodynamics and airflow, we have almost sort of a potential dead zone in this back area here, where, air might not necessarily flow. So there are 2 things that I'm thinking about doing with this design to combat that, just to add a sense of realism. And one thing is, I think we're going to potentially try to make, like, almost what appears to be a channel sort of looking thing in the middle of the ceiling, because I haven't decided what I'm doing with the ceiling yet. And then we're going to pretend to take advantage of the Bernoulli principle, because we're going to have air flowing here and creating a lower pressure region than the hot air in here. So then that'll suck up the hot air into here, which will then, flow out the top. And then the problem becomes, if the air is all swirling around in a cyclic manner and potentially creating some turbulence on this edge, how are we ever going to get cool air into the back here? And so I thought, let's put in a couple of purely aesthetic bellows just to represent that we are in fact pumping air from the outside somewhere in the bottom of this, and just, letting the cool air in and sort of flush out everything else. So I think that'd be really cool, and we're going to have a lot of really neat aesthetic stuff. That's probably going to be in an episode or 2. But let's get back to the actual functional bits. So we have a bit of a mess. I took the mud mixer that we were just doing manually by the river, and I moved it in here, and unfortunately I didn't realize how fast it had to be running. And so we have, what is this, a quadrupling of the speed, which I think is at 8. I think this is at, I think this is 64 RPMs, which makes sense. It's consuming 256 SU, and I think the multiplier is 4. So we had to do a 4 times multiplication to get here. But then the other thing is, I'm also using, the windmill to power a whole bunch of other stuff. So I put in a stressometer here, and originally, I was just taking, I think it was this output here, and just passing it through to the other side. But when I then doubled the speed again for the mechanical crafter that I have over there, well, the stress was too much and the system stopped. And that was a bit of a problem. So I decided to put in the stressometer. I decided that we'd then take the output, still from here, but we're also bringing it around a loop and then stepping it down by a half again. So I think at this point, if I'm doing the maths right, that should be 8, 16 here, and then I want to say 32, so I think that's 32 RPMs, but then we're stepping it back down here, so this should be 16, if I'm correct. Don't quote me on any of this. That's just off the top of my head. So anyway, we now have this system where we can convert dirt into mud, and once again, we are using the advanced hopper filter in order to pump out dirt and take in mud. And the other neat thing that allows us to do is, we don't have any sort of other filtering, we don't have any sort of piping necessary, we don't have any clunky the basin outputs into a depot, outputs into a hopper, outputs into our actual inventory like I had out front. It's a nice little compact system, with the exception of the gear train here, but again, part of this is supposed to be aesthetic. I actually kind of want a whole bunch of rotating gears in the middle just for aesthetic purposes, and this happens to work out nicely for that. I think I might add another cog on the side here, and possibly also here, maybe? I don't think the rotation will allow that, but I'll need to think about that. And so I think it'd be cool just to add a little bit of motion. Let's real quick talk about the mechanism of the elevators. So this, I'm trying to remember if there are any other builds that I've done recently with this, but... Oh yeah, the gate. Yeah. So this is very similar to my gate mechanism, where we have a gearbox here. We have a gearbox under the other gantry shaft as well, and that means that the rotations are offset. So we're controlling all of this from the same sequenced gear shift. So it extends 6 meters at double speed, so that's 32 RPM if I'm remembering the maths again, and then it retracts at 6 meters. Now we also have down here an RF Tools timer, which... this isn't exact, and I really need to record this and do a frame perfect analysis of how much time it takes exactly to do the full cycle, but at 32 RPM, it appears as though the elevator takes 10 seconds to ascend or descend, and then I wanted 30 seconds to allow people to get on or off. And so, we set this to 800 ticks, which, divided by 20, is 40 seconds. 10 for the elevator movement, 30 to get on or off. It's a very nice cycle. So, we also have, the piston movement, then await the next redstone pulse, and then another piston movement, and then the cycle resets. And so we just have this on a constant loop, and so far the only times it's appeared to have broken is when I was fiddling with the settings about the speeds, when I was doing, gear ratio stuff over there. I waffled between having this on double speed or single speed, and what that meant for the timings, and all that stuff, but I think this is perfectly fine. The movement when you're riding it appears to be very stable as well. Originally I had this at half speed, and I think the cycle was 50 seconds, but I decided that was really annoying, and that, doubling the speed of the gantry movement, and then cutting out that 10 seconds extra really made it a much more enjoyable experience. You're not waiting forever for the elevator, more or less. And then, finally, mechanical crafters. So we have another gear ratio thing going on here, very cheeky, because we wanted to double the speed. Oh no, we're not just doubling the speed, we're doubling it twice. Yes, so we're quadrupling the speed. This trick is that I've got the other large cog on the other side of this clutch. So we want to be able to turn off the crafter, and I do kind of want to see, is that using... Oh yeah, we are right on the edge of our stress limit. So it's clear that we can only really have one thing operating at a time unless I do a cheeky additional generator hidden somewhere, and I think I probably am. The thing is, I am gonna hold off on doing boilers until a little bit later, because I have an idea for my first boiler, assuming it works, and I need to test that out in creative, and it's also not going to be a while for plot relevance reasons, but I'll probably hide some water wheels just under here. Oh yeah. We're also pumping water from just a couple of infinite sources down below, and we need some of that for the pressure refinery up here. And that's also part of the reason that we're down to 32 RPMs here, is because 16, whoa, you scared me. I see some enemies on the map, and I totally thought you were one of them. But we originally had this at 16 RPM. I figured that wasn't going to be quite fast enough to supply both the refinery and this mud mixer down here if they both happen to be used at the same time. And we still have a little bit more work to do with the forge itself. I'm still going to put in a create blast furnace type thing here with the encased fans, and we also need to surround this block of dawnstone with some lava, because the way the pressure refinery works is it's like a 1.5 multiplier by default, but if you put a metal block under it and then surround that block with heat sources, you can get up to 3 times multiplier for your ember efficiency. Now, what I'm hoping to get into the next part of the episode is, yes, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is I'll probably end up putting the crushing wheels right around here, thereabouts. So that's definitely one thing I want to get into. I kind of need slime for part of the aesthetic parts of this build, because I think I want to put, like, a whole bunch of the blast furnace blocks, just the regular blast furnace blocks, in as sort of the floor of this furnace, because you want something heat resistant as, you know, the floor of your smelter. Because otherwise, if you have something that's not heat resistant, you get a meltdown, and that would be very bad for all of the mechanisms down here. Again, I play Minecraft a little bit too realistically. I saw really cool use of create mechanical bearings in the Nether, of all places. It was part of a generated structure, which, I mean, hey, really cool that they've put create into generated structures in certain mod packs. That's pretty rad. So, if I have the presence of mind, it's going to be on screen right now. But what we're planning for the doors down here, especially now that I have the elevator and I'm not trying to fit a spiral staircase in here like I was originally, is that we're going to have a mechanical bearing here, a mechanical bearing here, and then we're going to have like a couple of fairly large curved doors, if I can make it work, and they're going to swing out to maybe 45 degrees, maybe 60, depends on how far out I want them, and we're going to do that again with a very similar mechanism to the elevators. We're just going to have a sequenced gear shift, and we're going to, you know, just set the angles to open up to about 60 degrees, you know, rotate 60 degrees, and then wait for a few seconds, and then rotate back. And I think that whole thing is going to be triggered by, I'm thinking maybe like a pressure plate, probably obsidian pressure plate, so only players can trigger it, but I wanted something that's like immersive, something that's kind of like unique but interactive and it just adds to the world. So we're going to have something like that right here. That's it for this part of the episode. It's up to future me to figure out what we're going to do next. Take it away, future me. Gee, thanks, past self. I hate you for being so indecisive. But at least we have some stuff done. You can see that I've gone hard into the automating certain components that we're going to need. Materials are not 100% automated, we're just inputting them, so it's like a semi-automatic process. We still have to stock things manually, and that's okay, because in this early part of the series, I'm intending to do a whole lot of stuff manually. But let's take a look at some of the complete things that we've done. You can see we've got our crushing wheels implemented. I don't think I actually have anything. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Let me take that upgrade out of there, because we don't actually want a hopper there. I don't think there's anything that I can crush in here, unfortunately. Do I have anything in my inventory that I can use as an example? And the answer is no. But the point is, so we have a gold barrel up at top from Sophisticated Storage. I really like the mangrove color. It seems to go well with the rest of my color scheme, and the gold accents on the gold variant with the extra storage is, I honestly think, also goes very well with everything else, since, you know, we've got the brass going on. So I decided to stop there instead of going for diamond like I have in the other room. But we have gold barrel, we have smart chute, which the filter, I believe, can I take a look at the filter? I think it should let me look at the filter. I should be able to look at the filter while crouched. Yes, up at the top, you can see allow list any can be crushed. So it will only take out items that can be crushed. If I put, actually I could crush some brass. Yes, let's use that as an example. No, I can't crush brass. There's no dust for it in this pack. That's right. Never mind. But if I were to crush something, then it would go through this smart chute, and if we go out the back, I had to go to Reddit for this, and if I have the memory, I will look up the Reddit that I got this from, but I tried putting the observer, the smart observer, on the crushing wheel controller, which does actually kind of function as an inventory. It's, you know, like a one stack inventory, but the problem is, the smart observer doesn't read that. It only reads like actual physical inventories. So there are some things that you can do with like using pipes to pipe things into the crushing wheel controller, but I guess you can't observe out of it. So I put the observer on here per Reddit, and when an item comes in here, it'll briefly pulse, assuming we don't have any more backlog in here or whatever. So then we send it through this create pulse extender, which is set to 30 seconds. That goes through to here, which negates the torch, which goes through this redstone link down to here, and underneath this we have a clutch that turns the system off when it's not in use. So basically, every time something goes into the chute, this turns on, it grinds up a little bit, there's a little bit of delay, and then it eventually turns off, and the results end up down in the bottom, the products. We are gonna do this next, just because it's actually fully set up. No, it's not actually fully set up. So what I need to do is add these hopper upgrades to, oh no, that one's got NBT data, doesn't it? Yes, it does. Well, that's fine. So we are going to have to do some NBT configuration here, but we have the makings of precision mechanisms, and in this pack, precision mechanisms are the only create mechanisms, I think. So we take from the leftmost mangrove barrel, we only allow out gold or golden plate, which, yes, we have a mechanical press here if we do let out a gold ingot, and it will, you know, punch it for us so that we don't have to do that in our inventories. But with the number of hammers that we have that can do that in the crafting grid, it's kind of extra, but I like extra. We're doing it rule of cool style. So I do need to put, okay, that's just draining out, so that's just working. But we have a small cogwheel here, large cogwheel here, and iron nuggets. And those of you who are familiar with Create in later versions, and those who may have watched my Vault Hunter series will know that you, in order to make a precision mechanism, need to cycle this thing 5 times, doing this sequence of applying stuff to it. And because, of course, these are sophisticated storage barrels, we also can remember the slot memory, so that's not emptying out. I do want to check out the hopper settings real quick. We're not blocking anything for input or output. That's perfectly fine. But if we toggle this on now, we've got another cheeky clutch there, and you can see things are just cycling. And so the way I've set up my filters here is there's no filter on the output, just because there is still that 20% fail chance. It's just that it's cheaper in this pack because you don't have to worry about very custom materials. But on the back, if we take a look at this funnel here, up at the top there is allow list ignore data on the incomplete precision mechanism. So that's why the precision mechanism will continue to cycle through this until it gets to that 5th stage, which I think that one is about to, because I'd already done like an extra stage on it. But then, once it comes through the last time, it should turn into a precision mechanism or fail. And I do see that we have a failure in here, which, you know, obviously is not outputting out the back because we've very specifically tailored our funnel filters. Anyway, very nice. We have automated that process. All we need to do is input gold of some type into the barrel on the left. Nice stuff. Now, lastly, we are going to come up here, and we are going to do some of our barrel stuff as well. So I'm just going to put hopper here, hopper here, hopper here. Please tell me I have... Yep, I've got the slot memorization on for those. And I'm going to save this one for last because I don't have the material that goes in here. But you can see we had a whole bunch of redstone links up there. We have a whole bunch of redstone links down here. And what that allows us to do is we can toggle on which thing we are attempting to plate at any given time. So naturally we have andesite casing, we have copper casing, we have brass casing, and then next to it, lastly, is going to be train casing. Now, why did I put train casing over here is because it requires brass casing as a thing in the recipe to begin with. So I figure if I'm making train casing, I obviously need to make brass casing too. And so I put an OR gate here. And the negation of an OR is not and, I believe. Hold on. But anyway, the point is you need both of these levers off in order to trigger the train casing. Because, you know, once I have the material here, it'll be strictly linked up to this clutch, which will power this deployer. So, for example, let's just go ahead and do... I already have some andesite casing. Let's do some copper casing first, so I guess we'll do that. We'll toggle that. We will toggle this clutch here. And it would help that I put some of the stripped logs in here, so we're just going to put a couple of stripped logs in here. And now you can see we are automating casing. It's pretty hot. And then let me just toggle this on. We'll do another 2. And now we're automating andesite casing. And did I not? Oh, I forgot to put a... The nice thing is, I also happen to have an extra funnel. So we're just going to slap that on here. And are you pointed the correct direction? You are pointed the correct direction, so why are you not? Because of the lever. Okay, I am gonna have to rethink this design just a little bit. Just a little bit. Okay, for now let's toggle this off, just because we're not doing anything there. But lastly, let me make sure this is off, and we want to try this. So you can see that deployer is in fact activated now. In the future, it'll do train casing, but now we have our brass casing. Excuse me? Hello? Oh, it's stuck there because it doesn't understand... It doesn't understand not to process that while that's on. That makes sense. Okay, so I do need to do a little bit of redstone work here. I'll need to think about this one just a little bit, because I don't know if there's any kind of vertical redstone that I can do in this pack. We sure as heck don't have the Project Red alloy wire that I would normally use for this, I don't think. So I need to think about that. The point is, we do still need this OR gate for the train casing. We just need the lever not to be here. Okay, so this is actually after I've recorded the outro and all that good stuff, but I have just thought of a better way to deal with this, and I've also realized that the OR gate is kind of unnecessary to do what I'm doing, because, I mean, an OR gate is just, if either of these signals are on, it'll be off if I just, like, put the redstone link there, and if I just... So the point is, I failed just a little bit here. What we're going to do is get rid of this OR gate. We are going to move... I guess we could put the train casing transmitter here, weirdly enough, and then we'll move this to here. And now theoretically, if I toggle this and I toggle that, now both of those should just start going, and they are. And that's not blocking the funnel. Yeah, okay, so this is better. I don't know if I like having this here instead, but you know what? Beggars and choosers and all that stuff. I could move the lever up to here and put like a dot of redstone dust under there, because I'm not even going to see that from here. And that could work aesthetically. I could also run a cheeky No, I can't run a cheeky redstone line out the back, because that is going to be part of the other room. Like, this is the wall to the other room, so there's nowhere that I can disguise the redstone back there. Anyway, this is fine. I think I do like the idea of putting in a cheeky redstone dot just underneath that lever, though. So we are going to do that. I'm going to do this, and let me go get some redstone, and just casually put in a dot here. I think that should work. And then, oh no, not there. Put in a dot here. Oh, okay, it can't actually be a dot. It can just be that makes sense. Now everything's just working. And I think this is fine. Yeah, because we definitely can't see the redstone. I am probably going to come back in here for aesthetic reasons later and just, like, do out the back wall. But I think that's enough redstone refactoring right now. Let's cut back to wherever I cut back to. So, as I referenced earlier in this episode, we might put in the doors next episode, I think, with the two mechanical bearings, like, roughly here and here. I really need to do some kind of automation for wood, and I think as much as I would like to do a create farm for wood, I think performance-wise that could be an impact on the server, and so what I'm going to do instead is botany pots for the wood itself, and instead I'm going to put in a sawmill that is going to strip the wood, and if what I have in mind works, we might be working on that next week. I do need to do some Creative Worlds testing, but it's going to be really dang cool, I think. But that is going to do it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, be sure to like, subscribe, and click that bell to be notified. And as always, I'm looking forward to your feedback in the comments below. And with that, I will catch you on the flip side. Thanks for watching, everybody. In the upper left is the next video in the series, or a video you might like. In the lower left is the series playlist, and on the right is my icon, by which you can subscribe. Thanks again for watching!